This full color print wasn't printed digitally with DTF or DTG. It was printed with just 4 screens, CMYK. And here's how you do it. 4-color process printing, also called CMYK printing, was actually adapted from traditional offset printing. You know, like how they print books, using 4 transparent inks: cyan, magenta, yellow, and key or black. The reason why black is called the key is because it brings the entire print together. By using these transparent colors and using halftone screens, you're actually able to create 4.29 billion different color variations. If separated and exposed properly, these inks mix together wet on wet on canvas in order to create that full color image. But not every type of design is made for 4-color process printing. First of all, 4-color process printing is meant for a light background because those inks have to mix together wet on wet. So anything on a black background probably is not 4-color process printing, but even something like this, it's a full color image, but this is a vector image. You have spot colors in a vector format. Not great for 4-color process. Something like this, again, could be printed with 4-color process, but there's really not that many colors in this design. So it's probably best to print with a style called simulated process where you're actually printing more of the color that gets transposed to the garment. Something like this, great full color design. Could work 4-color process if it was on a light garment, but since this is going on a dark garment, probably not the best example. Full color design, dark garment, and mostly spot colors. You have a blue, you have a orange. Probably not best to 4-color process print that because it'd be best just to print it with blue and orange. Finally, something like this, it's going on a dark background. Full color image could work on a light background, but not best on a dark background. This is a great example of a 4-color process that would work. It's on a light background, it's a full color image, it has a lot of different color variants in this design. So you want to make sure that you choose the right type of art for the 4-color process print method. Today we're going to be using Photoshop to work with our 4-color process image. The first thing we want to do with our image is we want to make sure 2 things. Ideally, this is on a transparent background, and 2, it's 300 dpi. If it's not on a transparent background, let's go ahead and get it on a transparent background and then bring it up to 300 dpi, even if it's a lower resolution image. That way, any adjustments or any channels we're going to be adding in the future will be at 300 dpi. Next, we want to clean up our image and enhance it. Essentially, if we just go straight to films, we're going to not get the most out of our image. So there's a 5-step image process that cleans it up in order to enhance it for 4-color process printing. As we're preparing for that, we're going to make a duplicate channel so that we save our original and are just working in an additional channel. While we're doing this, this is in RGB mode. We do not want to change it to CMYK mode until we're actually ready to go to separations. The whole goal of this is to get rid of that gray matter in the image, which is going to turn to muddy halftones in our design. And really, we want to sharpen or boost the image. So step 1 is we're going to go to Image Adjustments and Selective Color. Then we're going to simply highlight the neutrals and boost each of those neutrals somewhere between 5 and 7%. You want to click it on and off your preview mode so you can see what's happening on screen. You don't want to over adjust this. These are all very small adjustments. Next, we're going to Adjustments again and go to Hue Saturation. We're going to boost our saturation up between 15 to 25 points. Again, clicking on and off that preview, making sure not to oversaturate this image. After that, we're going to boost up the contrast. Again, Image Adjustments and Contrast, and then boosting that contrast up just about 5 points, 7 points or so. Again, clicking on and off to see what we're doing. Very small adjustments here. The next part's a little bit more tricky. We're going to levels and we're trying to find the true black and the true white point of the image. So most of our levels, we're going to go to our option and make sure our lighter and darker option is selected. Then the black is on the left, 0 point, and the white is on the right, 255. This is RGB. We're going to hold our option key down. That's going to allow us to see what's happening in the image. We're going to slide the left over and we can see the black point actually come into the image. In this case, just a few points. We're going to do the same thing on the top end or the white side. So option key down, we're going to slide it to the left, and this is going to take a little bit more to bring in to get that white point actually happening in the image. Once we see that, we're going to unselect and then again preview on and off to see what we did. The next step is we're going to actually sharpen this image up. To do that, we're going to change the mode from RGB to lab, and then we're going to go to just the lightness. Then we're going to go to unsharpen mask. This is located under filter, sharpen, and then unsharpen mask. For this, we set our amount to 50, radius about 5, and threshold at 0. I changed that between maybe 50 to 100. And again, you can see what's happening in your image. If you do too much, it's gonna actually transpose or threshold your image, and you're gonna get rid of those halftones. So you don't wanna do too much. But again, you can see this actually coming to life and bringing the edges of your image together. Finally, once this is done, we're gonna switch back to RGB mode and we're gonna look before and after by selecting that unmodified underbase or that duplicate channel and comparing it to our fix. Wow, Just those 5 small adjustments makes this image really come to life. The better your image looks on screen, the better it's going to expose to screen on press. Now we go to image separations, and that's the best part about 4-color process separations. All you're doing is changing the mode from RGB to CMYK, and boom, you're separated. But wait, because of the way color profiles work, if we don't use the right color profile to match our inks and our screens, it's not gonna look good on press. Now, have you ever printed a computer paper and had it just not look too good because maybe you selected the wrong type of paper? You're trying to print a photo image, but instead of putting photo paper in, even though you selected that on your print menu, you just put plain paper in. Came out looking way saturated. Here's some examples of using a good profile and paper type selecting and a bad one. And with photo paper, a good one and a bad one. The same thing will happen on your screen printing press if you're not using the correct color profiles. To do this, simply go to the ASI 4-color process ink page on screenprinting.com and find the color profiles CSF file and download those to your computer. Once these are downloaded, simply go to your color settings and then load. Find the file, load the settings, and hit save. Immediately, you're gonna see your image change on screen. That's a good thing. Now, once your color settings are correct, all you have to do is go to mode, change from RGB to CMYK color. You can select your colors in your channels and see your yellow, magenta, cyan, and black come together to create that full color image. The one thing that we do notice when this happens is that we lose vibrancy, like this green in this text. To modify that, we're actually gonna show you how to add a highlight channel. This is easy to do. We select all of our colors, CMYK, and then go to color range. Now we can actually select the green in the design. Because we're creating a film positive, we're gonna invert that selection and just select the green positive area. We're gonna adjust our fuzziness and the area of the image that we're selecting, so we're only selecting the green area of that image. Once we have just the green selected, we're gonna save that selection. We're gonna name the channel our HL green or highlight green. Then I'll see this pop up in my channel menu. I'll double click that and actually change it to a spot color and load the actual fluorescent green into it. Now we can go through our separations again. Go yellow, magenta, cyan, black, and then the highlight green. And that green comes back into our image nice and bright. Now that our separations are done, let's go to film output and halftone selection. When outputting films for 4-color process, it's best to use a RIP software to control those halftones. There are 2 different popular types of halftones for 4-color process printing: rosette and flamenco. Rosette patterns use different angles to create a rosette or rotating pattern to create a 4-color process illustration. This is often done in offset printing, but it's very hard to accomplish with textiles for a few different reasons. One is our canvas is not very fine. Even good quality canvases like 30 single shirt do have holes, valleys, and craters in them that your halftones are gonna have a hard time representing too. Second is our screens aren't super tight. We're using 355 mesh screens, which is super fine for 4-color process printing, but not super fine as it comes to the world of offset, where you can use up to 600 mesh, or even plates, which don't use mesh and print perfectly on paper. Paper is a solid substrate, it doesn't move. Those plates can hold extreme detail. So for 4-color process printing for garments, we typically recommend the flamenco method or single line halftone. As we're printing these films in Photoshop, we wanna make sure that we select a few different things. Center crop marks or registration marks. I prefer center crop marks because not only can I register that design, I can also register to the center very simply on press. And then also info, very important to put info. That prints actually what color of screen you are exposing. Without that, you're guessing. If you forget that for some reason, simply take a Sharpie and write what screen, cyan, yellow, magenta, on the film itself. So we're gonna go into our RIP settings and select a 22.5 degree angle. You can adjust this, but we found that 22.5 with a round dot works the best. For our line setting, we're gonna go to 55 line LPI, which is matched to go to 305 mesh screens. Now keep in mind, we're doing this with films. If you're using 4-color process printing with a CTS or laser machine, you can go a lot higher than that. You can go up to 85 line, maybe 355 mesh screens, because your detail that you can hold on those machines is so much greater. The goal of 4-color process printing is to get the color to actually capture to the screen. We'll talk about that during the screen making process. If that doesn't happen, our image won't translate correctly on press. We're using a round dot, 22.5 degree angle, 55 line LPI, matched to go to 305 mesh screens. When it comes to making screens for 4-color process, the first thing is with your 305 mesh screens, we want to make sure they're within 1 or 2 newtons of each other so they match on press. So we're going to take our Newton meter right here and we're going to measure both directions of the mesh in the center. So that's coming in at about 17 right there, and then just a little bit higher than 17 the other direction. I'll go ahead and mark that down, and I'll put in a date. Then we'll measure the next one, 18. But that's okay because it's within 1 Newton of each other. Now that we know which screens are actually going to match on press from a tension perspective, we need to make sure that we clean the screens very thoroughly. Not that you shouldn't always do this, but specifically with 4-color process, because we're dealing with very fine high mesh and very, very fine halftones, we want to make sure that we're cleaning our screens, thoroughly rinsing them and drying them in a very clean environment. Now that our screens are clean and dry, when it comes to coating your screens with emulsion and choosing that emulsion, we want to make sure that we're using an emulsion that can retain that detail. So something that you've exposed a lot, you know your exposure times, and it has good high resolution. So for this one, we're using the base layer complete emulsion, which is my go-to emulsion because I print both plastisol and water base. We're going to go ahead and use our sharp side. We're just going to do a 1-in-1 coat. We're not needing a super big ink deposit or EOM, but we do need a really good encapsulation of those mesh knuckles. So we're going to go slow on that coat, applying good, even pressure. And then important when you're coating the flip side of the screen or the back side, you're going to flip the screen over so that emulsion is encapsulating those knuckles from a different angle. Also, quick note, when you're drying, always dry with the shirt side down. We're going to clean our exposure unit glass, and that'll give us the best possible exposure. Comes to aligning films, I do like to look through my screen first because sometimes there's like spots in the side of the screen, so I always use the better top third of the screen. And I'm just going to use a ruler, and I'm going to go 6 inches down from the top of the frame. I want to make sure that each film is approximately the same spot in the screen to make registration easier. Tape it on and start the exposure process. Very important to make sure that your exposure times are dialed in and not to overexpose the screen. And how you tell that is 2 ways when it comes to 4-color process. One is your standard exposure step wedge calculator. We're going for step wedge 7 exposure. And then the second is a gradient scale. So what this is basically 5% halftone dots, open dots, to 10% closed dots. I'm gonna put the step wedge on the top, the gradient scale on the bottom, and then we got our film inside here. So that way we can see everything that's happening once we go to rinse the screen out. We want to make sure we're not overexposing that screens with 4-color process because of all that gradient detail. Unlike water base or more spot color work, we can get away with overexposure. We're going to make sure that we have a good fast exposure, not underexposed either though. Let's go over and wash it out and see what happened. I'm going to bring this over to our light safe area to inspect it. Now, I did tell that we overexposed this screen. First of all, the 7 wedge step wedge did wash out all the way to 7, but we have some scum right here at the 8-9 mark. That means it's not fully releasing. Second is if I'm looking with a loop on my halftone dots, I got all my closed dots right there. They exposed just fine. But my open dots are having a problem getting out. They're slightly exposing, and the black's not the most important. We'd probably be okay with this screen, but I'm actually gonna just redo this to be on the safe side. So I'm gonna go ahead and bump the exposure down. We hit that 7, got a little tiny exposure scum on the 8, but it's looking really good. We're getting all the way down into our 5s right there. It's not washing out all the way, but our 10s are definitely washing out. So we're gonna bump it down 1 more second for the rest of the screens. As our screens are getting staged and set up ready to print, let's talk about print engineering. When printing the color order of 4-color process, we want to start from light to dark, also known as YMCK. You can remember that song from the 80s, YMCK. Now, when it comes to registration, I actually do it the opposite way. So I like printing the black screen. Don't like registering the films because you never know what's actually going to happen through the screen on print. So I actually print the black screen first and then register all the other colors to that before putting ink in every color. So once I have that down, I'm going to go ahead and tape this. What I mean by tape this is instead of flashing it or printing it wet on wet for registration, we're going to use a clear tape. This gives me a dry erase board essentially on top of my print and allows me to register to the actual print. I'm looking for my reg marks, and I'm looking for the print itself. We're gonna start off with the screen essentially out of the clamp, and then I'm gonna get it as close as possible with the screen in the clamp to both top and bottom reg marks, as well as the print itself. Lock it down all the way. We also want to make sure we're adjusting our off contact. We want a little bit of off contact for 4-color process, maybe an 1/8 inch. We do not want too high. We do not want on contact either. And we just need to come over slightly to, well, my right or the print's left. So for that, I'm just gonna loosen these micros just slightly, come back and lock it in. Okay, then we go to the next one. Again, we're just doing this every single time, looking at on screen, making sure everything's in register. Now I'm gonna actually print my design. I'm gonna keep this on one platen to make sure that I can always go back and make adjustments to this dry erase base. And then I'm gonna go ahead and load a new white shirt ready for print sampling. Before we load the ink in the screen, let's talk about squeegees. Now you can use a variety of squeegee blades for 4-color process, but the important part is the strength of the blade, and that also has to do with how much pressure and how you're pulling or pushing it. So for manual printing, you're gonna notice I'm gonna be pushing this. The reason why I like to push this in manual printing is I have a lot more control over my angle and pressure. I'm not able to like smash the ink too much down, which is gonna cause dot gain, or essentially too much saturation, which is gonna change how the color looks. Another way we're going to avoid that is by using a triple durometer blade. So this is a 75-90-75, and that has a stronger core on the inside, giving this blade more stability. So especially if you're going on an automatic press, this is probably what you're gonna be using. If you only have 70 blades in your shop, probably gonna work just fine. But again, we're going back to the actual print order, so we're starting with yellow. So now 4-color process inks are transparent in nature, so they're not very thick, they're thin. They lay down a lot like water-based, maybe slightly thicker than water-based or like HSA. We do want to produce a very consistent result. Flood up and then push back. We have our registration marks open still. You never want to have ink dripping through your image area because this is thin ink. This is high mesh. It's going to soak into that image area, and it's going to cause inconsistencies for your next print. We're going to load our magenta. Oh, we're going wet on this. We're not flashing in between. Magenta, because it has more pigment in it, be a little bit thicker than that yellow. One flood and then one solid print back. And this is cool because you can start to see this image already start to come to life here. Things are looking pretty good so far. Cyan is going to be even thicker. Flood up and then push print back. Again, our image is really starting to come alive here. Now we already have our black loaded, and that should be registered because that's what we registered to. So we'll come down here, do one final print with a black, and let's see where we get. So a couple things I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to be looking at for registration, and I'm going to be looking for color consistency here. It looks like our magenta is slightly low, whereas everything else is hitting that black line there. So instead of having to try to re-register this is where we're going to go back to our dry erase. I'm going to take a look at where I'm at on this screen once again. Oh, and I can definitely see my magenta is low. So now I'm just going to bump that up. Now that I got my magenta raised up, I'm gonna do a test print on the dry erase. That way I don't have to wreck another shirt. And I can see now I'm on registration with that screen. I'm gonna keep this dry erase on one more time just to make sure, as through production, we're good. Now that we're registered, let's tape off our registration marks and go to production. Now, 4-color process is going to gain over time. So before you start production, if you want to run about 4 to 6 shirts, we've already done that through the registration process. We know that ink's flowing through the screen. The reason why I prefer to flood up and push back is because I flood the screen or the stencil with ink, and then I push back, controlling my pressure and angle. You can also flood up and pull back, but if you're doing that, you got to be very consistent with your pressure. Also note, if you're manually printing, you want that same person to print the entire job. And you also don't want to schedule production if you're manually printing to have that person get tired, because then your results are going to vary. If you put too much pressure down, you get ink gain, your image gets darker. I'm leaving my mesh open area. This is a good example here of what not to do. I got too much ink on my squeegee right there and it left a drip. So we'll actually see this come through the print, unfortunately, on this first piece. Now, if this does happen and you're leaving tracks, pretty simple to fix. Pre-flood that screen, and that way everything stays consistent. On an automatic press, this is much easier to control. It's all about just setting not too much pressure. Lighter pressure is 40 PSI, and then using that triple durometer blade at that 10-degree angle or so. And there we have our CMYK print. This is color profiled, so we're not getting too much ink gain. We got nice bright colors. But as we were talking about in that artwork session, we're kind of missing some vibrancy here in this green. So now let's go ahead and add that highlight green into this print order, which would be the 5th color in this 4-color process. For our highlight today, we're gonna be using this Rio Electric Green. Now, if you can tell, this is not very similar to that 4-color process ink. It's opaque ink, got a lot of pigment in it. So in order to make that work and blend well with 4-color process, we need to thin this down. So we're gonna be using a Fashion Soft base, 10% or so to start, to really get that ink to flow through that 305 mesh screen, match the hand consistency and the print process of 4-color process. Now in the technical data sheet, it does talk about a halftone base. We don't have halftone base here. Not a lot of people use it because you don't really only use it for 4-color process. That's where we're using Fashion Soft. It does recommend that 50% halftone base, which is actually what we needed to get to with this Fashion Soft, 50% in order to get that ink to really flow. So we did add a lot more than 10%. Gonna just do a spot check registration, make sure we're in. Add that in the screen there. You can tell now that's the same consistency as that 4-color process. Again, we're still going wet on wet. Flood up, 1 pass, just like everything else. Ooh, and then we got that green popping and highlighting. So throw that in the dryer. For curing, 4-color process inks cure just like any other plastil ink, 320 degrees, 30 seconds or so in the dwell time. So now let's run that through one more time, CMYK in more of a production style of print. The last thing we want to talk about is garment selection or your canvas. A higher quality canvas is going to give you more detail and hold that ink up on top of the surface, giving you a more vibrant print, whereas a more looser knit or a rougher canvas will do differently. Also, a lighter color canvas, for instance, not using a white, maybe using a cream, is going to change the way the print looks. We have 3 different canvases. We just have like our PC54, which is a carded open end 20 singles. Then we have our DT104, which is a premium cotton, nice ring spun. And then we have a Allmade AL2100, which is a premium 30 singles ring spun as well. But this one is a natural color. That's our natural, looks pretty good still. There is our white premium cotton. Here is our white carded open end. You can definitely tell the white carded open end, it holds the detail way differently. You see halftones kind of like lose themselves. Definitely not quite as vibrant. The way this print looked, it actually looked great on the natural. So you can do 4-color process on natural without doing much extra. In today's world of full color AI artwork, you can get some really cool results using Avient's ASI 4-color process inks, the right tools and the right process to achieve great results. Have fun doing it and go pretty fast on press, which can be profitable for you. Now, we do have some other videos coming asking the question, can we do 4-color process printing on dark or black garments? So be sure to subscribe to see those videos and check out these inks available on screenprinting.com. I'm so lost without you. Didn't need to push you strong.